what I often like to do for our Christmas concerts is to take a particular area of the world or a particular country and build a concert, a Christmas concert around that. So, you know, we've done Christmas concerts that use all French music or all German or Nordic music, so different parts of the world, English, whatever. So this one was focusing on Latin America. And a lot of it is just because I love the music so much. And the Baroque pieces that we're doing there's a big history and a very large repertoire of Christmas pieces, Baroque Christmas pieces from Latin America, because this was such a big celebration at the time of the Spanish migration into Latin America. You know, there was a lot of conversion going on, and one of the ways that the Spanish priests would do this is to make big festivals around Christmas time and to use some more popular sounding music. And so there's just hundreds and hundreds of these pieces called villancicos, which are kind of like little Spanish dance forms about the Nativity. So there's a large repertoire to build from, and they're just joyful, infectious, really lovely. Well, it's you know, one of the interesting things about Latin American music is the influence of different cultures and how these different cultures melded together to create what we have now. And I find that both in the contemporary music and in the Baroque music. It's a very obvious thing in the Baroque music because the pieces that we're doing have this blending of Spanish influence, indigenous peoples' music, and African music, because you had at the time, you know, the 15th, 16th, 17th century, you had the slave trade into Latin America, you have you know, the Hispanic migration, and then the native peoples in the different parts of Latin America. And while that, you know, culturally and socially resulted in you know, a lot of difficulties and tragedies, at the same time, the music that came together out of that is absolutely fascinating, because you get this blend of Spanish dance music, you know, indigenous native sounds, African dance music, and it all came together in these Baroque pieces, which you would never suspect until you hear them how lively and fun and exciting they are. They would completely change, you know, people's conception of what, you know, European Baroque music is. This is like incredible dance music, and some of it has a very fresh, almost contemporary sound. And part of the reason for that is that a lot of these pieces were undiscovered until a few decades ago. So many of these manuscripts were in the libraries of cathedrals, or in some cases, there's some pieces we're doing that were discovered in the 60s in Guatemala, in this church, up in the eaves, up in the roof of the church, and the church was undergoing renovation, and as they were taking the roof down, the priest discovered, you know, these old manuscripts all bundled up. So a lot of the music really wasn't heard for centuries, and has recently, in the last few decades, been rediscovered and transcribed and started to be performed. So it has this incredible, fresh, new sound, and so you take that and put it together with the contemporary music that we're doing that also has a fresh sound, but still has some of those elements of Spanish influence and native influence, and they really they blend together perfectly. It's a wonderful melding, and we have some of the contemporary pieces we're doing are arrangements of traditional songs, like a traditional song from Aruba, or some traditional Amazonian tribal sounds brought into new music. So there are really some fascinating things going on. And then some of the instruments, some of the percussion instruments, we would use the same things for the Baroque pieces as we do for the contemporary pieces. So you actually get a real interesting crossover of what I often do in a concert like this is I'll have a few pieces that I know right away I have to include, because I just love them, and they're kind of in my pile of things I must do someday. And then if I'm looking at something thematic, like a Latin American concert, then I will just, you know, research, compile many pieces, go through my library, find manuscripts, and you know, and then I've got a stack like this, and I have to start kind of weeding through and picking out the ones that I think are most interesting. And in this case, I wanted to make sure that I had, you know, a fairly good balance of representing different countries. So we have, gosh, you know, Venezuela, Guatemala, Aruba, Brazil, I'm going to forget many of them, Argentina, Peru, Bolivia. Anyway, the list goes on. I'm not remembering all of them right now. But trying to get some representation from many different parts of Latin America. Yeah, in many cases with the Baroque pieces, they exist still only in manuscript form. So what I did was, go to the University of Washington Library and find some of the hand-copied manuscripts and make my own performing editions of them so that we could actually do them. So a lot of this music is not published, it's not readily difficult in the last decades to get much music from Latin America, just in terms of publishing. But I think we're seeing more and more of that. Certainly in the choral field, we see more and more Latin American pieces published in this country, so they're more accessible. In some cases, they are arrangements and not very interesting, but in some cases, they're original pieces by Latin American composers. And so some of those we include on this program. In particular, there's a wonderful conductor in Venezuela, Maria Guinand, who publishes a series here in the United States, and she's been a great advocate for Latin American choral music. So she, single-handedly is helping to disseminate Latin American choral music all over the globe, and she's just an amazing force. So I think more and more we will see Latin American choral music and Latin American instrumental and orchestral music come to. Well, the contemporary music, certainly is going to be more adventuresome in regard to harmonic structure and, in some cases, in vocal effects. We're doing one piece, a really fun piece from Brazil, in which the composer took sounds of an Amazonian tribe and just used some of the vocal sounds as phonemes, not taking an actual text, and then asks the singers to do all sorts of things like imitate the sounds of jungle, the sounds of birds or insects or things in the jungle. It's a bit of a departure for us. We don't usually do that, but it's really fun. The first time I took it to my singers, they laughed through the whole rehearsal. But now, they're well, I love conducting. I adore it. It's the most fun in the world, just working with people to make a beautiful finished product. And one of the things I really love about Musica is that the people who are involved are primarily not professional musicians, although many of them have professional training. So there are many people who trained as singers and then went into a different profession, or they are professional musicians who are working as teachers, maybe not as solo singers. So they have the background and the knowledge of professionals, but they have the love of what amateurs bring to performing. And so the group of people is really, it's a tremendous mix in terms of their backgrounds and what they do for a living, but with these incredible talents that are really, for many of them, at a professional level. And so it's just a real joy to work with that group of people in rehearsing and creating something, and then performing. And the performances are very professional level and very satisfying.